Hey there, writers, and welcome to Just Write Already, the short show for new authors to create pop fiction that means something.
It's filled with tips, real life stories, and advice that will help you finish this.
We're helping you to break free, get better, and write wilder so that readers can't put your story down, even if they should.
Dominic is a qualified voodoo doll helper, but he's also a realist.
Katy is our textbook potato associate and a mompreneur.
But not really. We're novel writers and story lovers who really need to stop talking and get back to writing.
And along those lines, we're sharing with you today 4 must-dos before you publish your story. So if you've got it written out and you're excited to share it with a friend or something, we want to walk you through 4 key things that you should think about or should be on your mind before you hit publish or send. Katy, what you got for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 4 quick tips. The first one is get feedback on your story. The second one is do a continuity check. The third one is the one that none of us like to do, but it must be done, which is the proofreading. And then the final step is read through that manuscript one more time.
Fantastic. Let's dig into how to do that. I confess that I will get stuck, especially on reading the manuscript. And I like how your first tip is to get feedback on the story. So yes, if you're going to publish it to your blog, share it with all your friends, reach out to one or two and get them to give a little feedback. It'll help you see all the things you're missing. But then do want to encourage you, just do hit that publish. Actually do get it out there, because I know I have spent forever just honing every word and spending weeks and laboring, and then it never sees the light of day. And that's a problem too. So it's so much better to hit publish, keep learning, integrate the feedback. So let's start right there. What are things to look for when it comes to getting feedback on the story? What should we be asking about?
Yeah, so as you say, we can get too caught up in this, but I think it's really important because you, as the author, you know how the story is supposed to go. You know what the characters' motivations are. And it can be really easy for you when you're reading through it to just overlook plot holes or overlook times when the character does something that doesn't really make sense or some action that's missing. And
Mhm.
just getting a friend who hasn't read it before to read the story can make you catch things that in hindsight will seem obvious to you, but you were just so steeped in it that you couldn't see it with your own eyes.
Mhm.
So, especially major plot holes. Now, there's probably always going to be some plot holes in your story, but what you want to avoid is the ones that are like really distracting. Like, okay, that doesn't make any sense.
Mhm. It's so funny how just one other person's mind uh, puts like puzzle pieces together differently. We can gloss over them maybe because it's just obvious to us what a story is trying to do and why characters do something, and it's not maybe obvious to somebody else. So getting even one person to read it and to be looking for continuity, like you say, plot holes, missed opportunities, and so on.
Mhm.
Anything else that we should be thinking about when it comes to feedback?
Yeah, so one thing I find really helpful when it's getting feedback from other people, I tend to be a minimalist when it comes to descriptions. And that's just because I have a very vivid imagination. So even when I'm like reading other people's stories, I tend to skim descriptions and just imagine it however I want to. So oftentimes, so I tend to find description kind of boring most of the time. So when people are reading through my stuff, one of the most helpful things that they do is they say, "I want a little bit more description here or there," because I know that that's a blind spot for me. So I will add it based on that. So ask yourself, like, what are your blind spots? What are the parts that maybe I need someone else to point out to me where I'm missing information or where I could add a little bit more action or a little less action, a little more, a little less description, those kinds of things. It's really good to have a second pair of eyes on that.
Fantastic. So there you go. Look for or ask about major plot holes and do the characters feel real.
Hmm.
If you haven't yet, do check out episodes 1 and 2 of this podcast, where we're talking all about how to ask for feedback, and then what to do when you get it, and how to give it. So, okay, step number 2: do a continuity check. Why is
Yes,
that important?
this is critically important and probably something you're not necessarily thinking about a lot. But what does continuity mean, first of all? Continuity means that things match up and they make sense. So if your character, if you have a character and you say like, oh, it was a blistering day in mid-July, but then like 3 pages later they're in a snowstorm for some reason because you as the author just kind of forgot that you had set the first part in the summer, and now all of a sudden it's the middle of winter 3 pages later with no time jump explained.
Mhm.
Those are the type of things that are extremely easy when you're just in the heat of the story to not really think about. So, does the timeline make sense when you're reading through it? I said maybe if you say this happened 800 years ago on one page, but then on another page you say, oh, it happened, 600 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Those little tiny details are extremely easy to overlook and to confuse, but they will really mess with your readers and confuse your readers if when they're in the story. So definitely go through and just make sure that your timelines match up. Other things, if you made up words for your story, make sure that they're spelled consistently. So when I was doing my story, I would constantly change the spelling of Cultahaven, which is a fake word that I made up.
Okay.
And luckily I had a good friend come through and tell me like, okay, you need to figure out a consistent way to spell this, and eventually I did. But stuff like that your autocorrect is not going to catch. um
Mhm.
yeah, all those little kind of details, just check up and make sure that things make sense, that the timeline's flowing right, that the geography checks out, all those little kinds of continuity details.
Okay, so we've covered continuity checks. Now let's talk about proofreading.
All right, so you want to do this at the very end of your writing process. And the reason you want to wait till the end most of the time is because if you have to go back and, rewrite a section, you'll end up introducing new errors to the section that happened earlier. So, this, you really need to have like a final manuscript that you're not going to be making any major changes to when you do the proofreading piece. So, I would start for proofreading using like Grammarly or another tool like that to run through and just proofread, and then just read it again yourself, proofread it yourself, try to find errors. And then as the very last step, you're gonna want to find a friend who is just like loves grammar, that grammar Nazi friend, the one who's like annoyingly correcting your Facebook statuses with for grammar, right? This is the type of person you want to do the final proofread on your manuscript. They're going to catch every little detail. And
Mhm.
they don't even have to like your story or like your genre. In fact, sometimes it's better if they don't, because if they get too caught up in the story, they'll start missing errors.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And lastly, I want to share one tool that I've grown to really love for almost everything. Whether you're writing like a blog article or you're writing a story, it's called the Hemingway editor. And Katie and I, we've talked about this in the past and so on. What I love is that it's got nice little um, what do you call them? Like, it gives you a grade on the quality of your writing. Like, how complex is it? Have you used overly complex sentences? Are you writing at a 10th grade level? Are you writing at a 5th grade level? um, if you've got run-on sentences or weak word choices and so on, it can be really cool to get a quick sort of color-coded view of your story, and then you work through that and decide if it fits your style, if it's appropriate for you. But almost every time I run a story through there, an article through there, it comes out so much stronger and easier to read, which is very hard to learn to get that. But if you can, then your readers will thank you. Any
Mhm.
last tips?
Yeah. So another tip is when you're proofreading yourself, if you read your story out loud, you'll catch more errors than if you read it in your head, because your brain has a surprisingly good autocorrect, I found.
Okay.
I
Alrighty, so we have covered getting feedback on the story, doing a continuity check, proofreading tips, and then what is the final kahuna that we should all pay attention to?
Yes. So before you submit this to a publisher, or if you're self-publishing, before you upload it to Ingram, Spark, or whatever you're using, read the entire manuscript one last time. And I cannot emphasize this enough, because I've seen what happens when you don't do it, and it's really bad. Uh, and the reason is, you might say, but I already did a proofreading pass, I already did a continuity pass. Why do I need to read through it one more time? The reason is because, you might have copy and pasted the wrong document. Sometimes when sometimes formatting issues will happen. Like, you'll end up with a bulleted list like mixed up into a sentence. Just weird stuff can happen like during the proofreading process. So before you submit it, just make sure you read through the entire thing from beginning to end one last time. Yes, it's going to take a long time. Tough cookies, you gotta do it. I don't know what else to say about that.
Okay. And there you go. Just read it through one last time to sign off on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. So if you weren't listening to this, you were probably, I don't know, editing a story or something. So thanks for taking the moment to listen to the 4 top tips that you should think about before submitting a story anywhere. Well, we figure, stuff that we got to share has got to be good because your writing life depends on it.
Well, not really, but one of these episodes might just explode your brain with an idea. You'll write a story and completely change your life.
Some of these did for us. Let us know what you think. This episode wraps season 1 of Just Right already. So we'd love to create this with you, and we have phenomenal feedback that's been coming back to us through our communities as we share each episode. So please do rate us 5 stars, send us questions, let us know what you think, suggest ideas for new episodes. I mean, what happens if you don't, Katy?
We'll finish you off.
There you go. We'll write the epilogue to your life narrative. So subscribe to this podcast at catholicauthor.us. Now that we're done with season 1, we'll take a break and come back for season 2 soon. And yeah, well, this episode's over. Now you can begin.
Just right already.